Hello and welcome back to McClaren Performance. Brighton have appointed a new manager in Roberto De Zerbi, and I wanted to take a closer look at that appointment and a closer look really at the club as a whole. The reason why I want to look into this is because I think it's so interesting that a club like Brighton, a club really that I think you have to consider now is in the top half of the Premier League, that they would take, not really a chance, but look at and appoint a manager that isn't one of those, say, top managers. For example, a position that Brighton are in, I can imagine they could appoint a manager, say, like Rafa Benitez. People would probably understand an appointment like that, but for a club like Brighton, they've gone for someone, anyone a fan of the Premier League, myself included, a manager, I don't really know who that manager is. But the closer that you look at the appointment itself in relation to the club that Brighton is at the moment, you can see how it's really a smart appointment. De Zerbi is a manager who's worked his way up really through all the Italian leagues to the point where he managed a team called Sassuolo and kept them performing at a high level, really a high level that they weren't expected to perform at. Now, on the face of it, it's a CV that doesn't really look that impressive. He's been to so many different clubs within many years that he's been a manager, and often just overlooking that, you think that that is an underperforming manager who is leaving clubs because he's not being successful there. But I think this sort of appointment massively highlights how Brighton make their recruitments with regards to players and staff and coaches as well. Because if you look beneath the surface of that CV, you really see a manager that is perfectly suited for what Brighton is at the moment. For example, specifically with Sassuolo, he kept that team within the top half of the table. They overperformed all the time, and with that, he built players up, he grew them, he developed them, so they could then sell them off for a bigger price. He's essentially done the exact equivalent of the job that Brighton need. He's already done that within the Italian league. Just with the tactical aspect as well, De Zerbi likes short passes, nice, attractive, attacking football. And that perfectly suits what Brighton want to do at the moment. They want to play within a system and have the same principles, really, that Graham Potter has already instilled. And De Zerbi can bring that. He can come into the job straight away and carry on the work that the previous manager's done before. There are a few slight differences. Potter, he will want his teams to sometimes play that long ball, whereas De Zerbi would rather much prefer his team stay compact, play short passes, never really having to make that long ball. Within that also includes a lot more running as well, but essentially the basics are still there. You can see that really within the first few games that De Zerbi has had to manage with Brighton. He's pretty much stayed with the same system that they played before. He has come to the club and everything is there prepared for him to do the work that he wants to do. I think the most interesting thing for me about this isn't so much De Zerbi and his management and his tactics and everything like that. The most interesting thing is just how well run Brighton is. And for me, it really represents a shift, at least a shift I think is going to happen within football, especially within the Premier League. I have talked about this so much, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But there's so many clubs now that are finding success from utilising data and analytics. Most prominently, Brentford are a team that are doing fantastically well at the moment, having an understanding of that. Nottingham Forest are another team, at the moment, are stumbling a little bit to stay consistent within that. But Brighton really are the top team, the lead example of how to use that data analytics, how to utilise it within recruitment. And that all originates from super genius gambler Tony Bloom, chairman and owner of Brighton Football Club. He, along with the staff that work underneath him, they're directly using the statistics and the numbers from the gambling aspect of things, and they're using that to recruit players and to build a club structure by which they can bring in players that don't cost so much and then sell them on later for such a high price. If you look at the team at the moment that Brighton have, the nationalities of the different players, the clubs that they've come from, they're really from a small areas in which other teams are not looking at. And that's why I say I think De Zerbi is such a good example of the recruitment at the moment, because not many other clubs are looking at that manager. That is how they're recruiting players as well, looking at the underlying data, understanding exactly what the manager is, what the player is, how they can fit perfectly within the system that they already have, recruiting that player and letting them thrive and develop within it. And yeah, all that money ball and data and analytics and stuff like that, it's really interesting. There's a lot to go into with regards to numbers of things and how it all works. What is interesting to me though, I think looking at it from a psychological point of view, It's just the consistency throughout the club from top to bottom, the message and the understanding of what the club is, what the team is, what they want to recruit, and how it's all going to fit together. I think a lot of that has to do with the emergence of the technical director, someone who is now working above the manager, who has a responsibility also for the football side of the club as well. It's no coincidence that at Brighton, Dan Ashworth, the real first prominent technical director, that's where he came from. I don't think it's any coincidence that he has come from there and done such a good job there and carries on doing such a good job at Newcastle as well. There are now people above the manager who are making decisions with regards to the setup of the team, the structure of the team, how they want their team to play. And yes, that's something that used to happen before with regards to owners, more in an obtrusive way, get in the way of the manager and the work that they want to do. But now they're doing it in a way that is entirely cohesive throughout the entire club. That's where my interest with the De Zerbi appointment really comes to fruition. Looking at where Brighton have a way of playing, Graham Potter's played this way of football, and they've gone, right, that is the way of Brighton. That is how we are going to play. And they've maintained that, and from that, found a manager that fits that system. The CEO was talking recently about how Tony Bloom, he had a list, and always has a list of managers that he wants to bring in. He always has an understanding, whether it's from data and analytics and things like that, but has an understanding of the manager that will fit perfectly within his Brighton team. Key thing for me is where before I think direction came almost in the middle of the hierarchy of the club with regards to the manager, and the change now is that a lot more control is being taken above the manager. There's a lot more responsibility is going to be taken by those positions of technical director. And we see it already with regards to the media and the public and fans, our knowledge and understanding of who technical directors are and what decisions are being made behind the scenes. I think more pressure is being put on that position. Clubs like Brighton, Brentford as well, and Liverpool as well to a certain extent are proving that large amounts of money are not always a solution to being able to consistently perform. Yes, it's a massive factor that contributes to it, but one thing that benefits them a lot is great structure behind the scenes, great organisation, great long-term planning, and great people in those technical director positions with understanding for one of data analytics, but also more understanding of how an entire football club is ran and how they can recruit players, build on profit, sell them off for a bigger price, things like that. The technical director role, or the sporting director role, as it's often sometimes called as well, it's really in its infancy, and in each club, a sporting director, technical director, they're doing lots of different things. It's not entirely clear what that job is, but there really will be a future, I think, where that job is clearly defined in the way that is at Brighton, at Brentford, at other clubs, where they will head and direct the way they want the teams to play, the systems and the principles and the values, and then managers, coaches, staff, players will be recruited on that basis. I think we've seen it a bit already, say with Nottingham Forest, for example, with their struggles at the moment, something I talked about before in a previous video, and it was somewhat expected that it wasn't going to start working straight away, especially recruiting so many players. But in that instance, you expect the manager to be sacrificed for that, for the manager to lose their job. But now a lot more responsibility is taken by the people who are responsible for recruitment and also in a position of technical director as well. And they are the positions that are being changed, and the finger is being pointed at them more often. Essentially, what my point is that before, managers usually took a lot of responsibility with regards to the direction of the club and changing the club and bringing their values and ideas and hopefully keeping their job and being able to carry on doing that. But now it's such a different sport. Clubs like Brighton and Brentford are showing how it really should be done, with responsibility being given to those higher up and values and standards and a way of playing being kept consistent for a good few number of years, regardless of managers coming in and out. And I don't think it will be long before every single Premier League club and every English football club really will be on that trend. But yeah, thank you for listening and watching. What do you think of my thoughts on Brighton, on De Zerbi, on the idea of football changing with regards to its organisation, and how much more responsibility is being taken by these technical directors? Make sure you like and subscribe and comment and review and all that good stuff, and I will see you again probably next week.